I had to first realize what I was doing that was giving you a negative about me, that I didn't love
Perception, yeah.
you or had no care about you. That for me was hard. I'm like, oh, how could that even happen? But I had to look at myself. Well, how have I been responding? How have I been available? How have I nurtured this relationship? Especially we're family, and to me, a family is should be a close relationship. I know it's not for everybody, and I'm still working on some of those areas of my family that have kind of slipped away. But I desire to have that closeness again. So that was the first thing, and that was me, because I get to control how I respond to my family members, the people that God has put around my life, my friends, my neighbors, whatever. So that's just about me. I can't expect everyone else to change so that
Right.
I can like them or interact with them or whatever. So that was the first thing, was figuring out how I was putting off a vibe that was not approachable. And that was hard for me to realize. Hey, everybody. I think I know what day it is. It's Monday. It's time for Splinter Grace. Thank you for joining us. I am Tina Frank, a conservative Christian woman that also is a believer in miracles.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bonnie Violet. I'm a transgender drag queen, artist, chaplain person, struggling with my words.
Well, it's your turn. Last week, it's your turn this week to struggle with the words. At least I know what day of the week it is.
Right. It's Tuesday, right?
Don't get me started. So, hey, how was your weekend?
The weekend was good. I feel like life is so full. It feels like so much happens from day to day, and like filming like a music video with some other drag friends for a fundraiser. You and I were on a radio show.
Yes, we were.
I thought that went pretty well. What did you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Bob was a great host. It was a great opportunity, I think, for us to really just kind of share a little more details about the restoration process that we've been through.
Yeah, for sure. And for folks who are curious, we'll put the links to that interview probably in this description. I think I can get you a link. Also, there's a good chance we'll probably upload it on the podcast as well. So as like maybe a bonus episode for this season. I don't know. That just kind of came to mind.
That sounds like a plan to me.
Maybe we could do that. Yeah, I was, it's it's like with so many things, you and I were talking a little bit about this, how we both can kind of get so self-conscious when we're doing things, and then kind of like critical about them. And so like, I was feeling the same way, went through the interview, and there was a part of me was like, oh, I didn't get to say this, or did we say that? Or did we and then I was able to listen back to it. And I was like, oh, we didn't do too bad. We did pretty good. Yeah.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear back. I'm going to listen back today. So tell us a little more about the video you're shooting. Did you say it was for a nonprofit?
Yeah. It was for like the recovery community. I did a number with Sutro Towers, Linda Summers, and Aliyah Little. That's their names. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, we did a salt and pepper number because it's a 90s themed show. So that was cool.
Should we have you give us a little demonstration?
No. I signed an agreement that said I couldn't.
Okay.
That's a little bit of a lie.
I was going to say.
It's not a little bit of a lie. It's a total lie.
Well, you have to make sure you share it when it comes out on here so that everyone can see.
Yeah, I'll definitely get it out there once we once it's all done.
Were you guys did you guys have similar costumes? You guys just got to be artists in motion? What did all that look like?
We all were kind of in like sequined gowns and like super sparkly. It felt like a prom or a quinceañera or something. You know?
Fun. It's always looking for a good opportunity to get dressed up.
Yeah, and to do it like in public, you know, we're like in the middle of an intersection, like doing kind of like voguing and fashion.
So fun. See, I don't have enough courage to do that. I think I had a hard enough time when we needed pictures, just doing that kind of stuff in my front room, as you could tell, because some of the pictures you got, I know you were like, oh, please. So I don't know how you have the courage to do that in the middle of an intersection. So something I hope to achieve as I understand a little bit more. And be more than a conqueror, because some days I don't feel that at all.
Right. I hear that. A lot of the times it's like if I can be out of my head, I'm doing just fine. But once I start thinking, oh my God, do I look then I lose it.
What do you think about that? Why is it that our first thought is to go to a negative? I was thinking about that the other day. My first thought a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times is about myself or even about other people. It's usually a negative. I'm like
a connection. Kind of lost our connection there for a second, I think. I'm not sure if it's on. Not too bad. We've actually went like almost all season without having any of these glitches. I'm directly connected to the Ethernet, so I don't believe it's on my end. Hold, please. She seems frozen. Oh, lost her. Well, I'm sure she'll be back in a second. How are folks out there? Let's see. All right. I don't know what to do when she's not here. I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to say. We volley off one another. Today though, we were, we didn't necessarily have a topic today as well either. So if you all have a question or something you would like to hear us talk about, that would be really great. You could just put it in the comments. It looks like I just got a message that the connection is good. So at least on my side. So hopefully Tina will be able to pop in here in a second. But if you have questions or comments or something you'd love for us to talk about, please do put it in the comments because we could really use it today. We never have a hard time chatting, but if you have something that we can riff off of, that would be really rad. Well, it's one of the things I wanted. I can just do some of the logistical stuff while we're waiting for her to pop back on. I wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to Violet. Violet is a new Patreon who joined us yesterday, who signed up basically to contribute to the work of a queer chaplain and a splintered grace. So if it's something that you're interested, you can check that out as well. I don't do well with this. Oh.
Yay.
There she is.
Hey, sorry about that. Something happened with my internet. It's interesting because the internet truck is out front of my house at my neighbor's house. So I'm wondering
They're like,
if that has something to do. Yeah. So sorry about that. It's Monday. So I guess one of those quirky things of doing a live broadcast, huh?
Yeah. I learned that I'm horrible at stalling and like not having you here.
So anyway, I kept talking because I wasn't sure what was happening until my computer went like blue. I'm like, oh, the blue screen of death is never good.
Right. Well, and I was trying to think where you what you were talking about when you froze. Do you recall?
I think we were talking about your video, and I don't know. I kept talking, so I don't know where I froze.
Right. Well, how was your weekend?
Well, I don't know. What was the last thing you heard?
I don't think I heard anything.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So funny. Anyway, I had a great weekend. Easter was this weekend, and for me, it was just like one of my favorite times. We were so blessed that we were able to get together as a church community rather than online. And to me, that was just incredible. We've been able to do that for the last few weeks, but for Easter Sunday was really a blessing because for me, last Easter, all my Easter plans got blown out of the water because of COVID. I think everybody's did it. Yeah, it was the first time ever that we hadn't gotten together at church and family for a very long time. So it was really awesome this year to be able to do that. And we had a great teaching. Some of my family got to go to church with me, which is always a bonus. And then after church, we all came back here and we just had a great time hanging out. I was telling you earlier that my whole backyard looks like confetti. It's all over the place. It was so fun. We hopefully I'm not taking too long, but we decided to make it real easy. We did tacos and paper plates, and we all come armed with water balloons. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun. We had like 600 water balloons, and every one of them popped, and they're all over my backyard. So it's very fun.
That was always a fun tradition growing up. Is like, especially like around 4th of July, or I feel like that was the big day, but there were times when we would get in huge water fights, and it would be like 2 or 3 house. It's like the whole block down, hoses and water balloons, and like it was intense. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, we didn't allow hoses, but oh my goodness! But everyone participated. All the adults, all the kids. It was a free for all. We just had a great time.
That's great. While you were away, I asked for folks to ask us questions or bring up some topics. So
awesome.
David sent us a question. So we'll read it here. Okay. David wants to hear your thoughts on God and guns. Why are they always bunched together by many conservatives?
Hey y'all, it's me again, Bonnie Violet. I just wanted to take a second and thank my Patreon members. Patreon members are folks who contribute on a monthly basis anywhere from $3 to $150 a month to support the work of a queer chaplain. Big shout out to Victoria Thompson, Jason Brandt, Brandon Stanton, Kim Silva, Brandy McCarg, Randy Sandknop, Bob Kaiser, Joey Heckmeister, Violet Rhiannon, Gabriel, Jonathan, Petrick, and Todd Atkins Whitley. Thank you so much for your continued contributions. And if you're interested in joining the Patreon, just check the link in the description. Go to patreon.com/Bonnie Violet. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Well, I don't know that God has any specifics about guns. I think that a lot of Christians or conservative Christians believed on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the right to bear arms. So I think it just kind of goes, just follows along those lines. I've never heard my pastor or a pastor ever say we should all be carrying guns. I've never heard that. I think these are just people wanting to exercise their right or feeling that they want to be able to protect themselves. And I will say I go both ways. Although we do have firearms in our home, I don't carry a firearm personally. I do know how to shoot a firearm, so I could protect myself if I needed to. But I have a lot of thoughts about that myself. The Bible says that the battle's not ours, it's God's. And I believe that literally in the physical as well as the spiritual. But I understand people wants to exercise their right to bear arms. I don't think they should be taken away from people. I don't think they should be, I don't know, there should be some regulations, but I think that people are able to make some of their own choices. So I have a lot of different thoughts on that. So I don't want to start a whole nother conversation about all that, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have based on my own ideas, my own thoughts, and my own beliefs. I'm not speaking for anybody else.
Yeah, I think I think that I don't know. I feel like a lot of folks aren't necessarily, completely anti-gun. I think it's just the idea of like, there's certain guns, like, do we need machine guns? Do we need like even handguns? I don't know. Those are the things for me, like, that I just don't, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't like guns. I didn't even like them for hunting. Like, I understand doing it for hunting and for food. Like, those are things that we lived on growing up and was very aware of, but I just don't know if I don't know. I don't like how there's all these shootings happening and people are getting shot up in the ways that they are. I don't know that just removing guns is going to fix that, but I think it could probably, I don't know. I don't think it would hurt,
Yeah. Guns are a big conversation, and I don't think God and guns are definitely necessarily meant to go together. But I think people that that I know of that are conservative, that are in the church, a lot of them do carry a gun. And I think that there's one more thought real quick. I think that because of some of the shootings that have happened inside the churches for different reasons, I think people feel like they need to have one available if something like that happened. So I think that's been another motivator for all that.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if like the gods and gun, to me, when I think of like conservative, and I don't know, like I think of like kind of older tradition and kind of like holding on to the way things were at one point in time. And there maybe was a time when the world wasn't the way that it was, and there weren't guns and there wasn't, I don't know, it's like, it's a different time. So maybe some adjustments could be made, but David has a follow-up. David says, I grew up with guns too, and actually enjoyed firing them both as a teen and in the military. Now I am struggling with it. I would like to have one for protection in my home, but I also have 4-year-old twins, and I'm scared of keeping them in the home. And David asked, do you have guns in your home? Or did you have guns in your home while raising kids?
Yes, I did. Our guns are locked in a safe. We did not take our kids out and teach them about firearms. We just had one for protection. As my kids have grown up and become adults, they have chosen, not all of them, but some of them have chosen to also have a firearm in their home. And we have encouraged and helped them to teach our grandchildren about them, and that they also have them locked up in safes at home and unloaded. So that we feel like that's a safer way to go. But you're going to hear arguments contrary to that. Well, if it's locked up and unloaded, how can you defend yourself? And I think there's a viable argument if someone was to enter my house. But I think that's where my faith has to cover me. So there's a fine line there. So yes, I did. I was single for most of the time my kids were little, so I did not have a gun. When I got married, the man I married did have a gun, and we kept it locked up. And at that time, we did not teach our kids. So now they're learning that as adults and making those decisions for themselves.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so like, is a handgun considered the gun for protection, or? We both, my husband and I both have a handgun now that we are comfortable with and we could use to defend ourselves. Again, I don't carry mine all the time. We also do have, he had a rifle when I married him, and then he inherited an older gun that's more of just a novelty that we have. And I can't remember if he's got another one that he has gotten over the years for hunting or not, but that's it. We don't have a whole entourage of guns, but they are all locked in a safe.
and not in a safe that's just everyone can see it and admire it, or not that kind of a safe. It's a safe where they'd have to know where it is, how to access it, and pull any of those things out.
Yeah. I grew up, I think the only guns that I really grew up around mostly were just more around like hunting guns or shooting, like rifles, shotguns.
Yeah.
And I never had a desire. Like I just never had, I didn't like guns. I was scared of guns. I remember having an opportunity where when I was younger, I was with my father and he shot a gun or shot a deer. And I remember I was really excited about it for some reason. So I was like really excited and I went running up to the hill and then I got to the deer and the deer was dying and I ran down the hill crying and screaming.
Yeah, you were heartbroken.
Yeah. So I think after that, I just don't like guns. I feel really uncomfortable with them.
Yeah.
So I just kind of personally, I just don't like being around them, but
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. When your ex-husband lived with me for a little while, he had a handgun and I was really uncomfortable with that. It's just not my normal, what I'm used to,
Right. And I think he still has a few guns laying around. I'm assuming he is responsible with them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a part of me I think at the end of the day, it does have to do with I think at the end of the day, it's not a gun itself it's the person behind the gun,
the operator. Yeah.
That can cause the violence. And I do think though that I feel like it's a communal response because of the way the society is existing. It is creating these creating it within some of us, I think, to use guns in a violent way or to feel like we need to have them, or you know what I mean? And so I feel like the solution it might not necessarily be about getting rid of the guns, but working with the people. But also you have to keep the guns away, if you will, until the person's well. Do you know what I mean? Until we can get better. I think kind of like the way that we put guns in a safe when we're around kids, when we're raising kids, is because they're not at a space that they can handle that well.
Right.
And so that's why maybe regulations and things like that might make a little sense, and maybe even a little bit more than normal, because we're dealing with mass shootings in a way that we've never dealt with before.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry, not to sound old and too crazy conservative, but there are some thoughts on that. I am from a generation a little bit older, and we used to not see all of the violent entertainment that is available now. When we shot a gun, it was shot for a purpose, and it was shot to kill. Be it an animal or a defensive thing. And now I see my grandkids sitting in front of video games for hours at a time, shooting. I know they're fake people. I know they're fake whatever, but I feel like there's a desensitized to some of that. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what the game is, because I don't do video games. So please forgive me. But I saw, and I was so mortified that they are even allowing him to play that, although he's 13.
Right.
But they shoot this person on the video screen. I know they're not real, but the whole way the shot landed, it was real. It looked just like if you would have shot a person.
Wow.
There was the blood, there was the whatever, there was a response of the movement of the body as it felt. I'm like, oh my gosh. And this is okay. Now I'm going to shoot 5 more because we're doing this quest. And so I feel like, this is just my opinion, I feel like along with the responsibility and all that stuff of guns, I feel like there's a responsibility to, I don't know, maybe not even responsibility is the right word. We've kind of desensitized the catastrophe. Does that make sense? Of someone losing a life? Because all lives are worth living. And if we take someone's life for any other purpose than to defend our own, it's not okay. in my opinion. And so it grieves my heart when I see these kinds of, and I'm not that, they play the music backwards, you're going to hear Satanism. I'm not that kind of a Christian.
Right.
And I believe we need to live in culture, and we need to experience culture. So I don't feel like I'm like the crazy lunatic kind, but I do think that with the things that we're seeing as general entertainment is a little bit desensitizing and creates some of these challenges, or assists with that at least.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that video games might make a lot of sense, but I also think that we live in a world where where a lot of people, for whatever reason, feel like they don't have much choice but to be a little bit more violent with things, and I think partially that, has to do, I mean, there's so many people there are so many restrictions. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like people feel like they, I don't know. I don't have a gun, so I don't know what the justification is.
Well, I always think violence is a choice. I don't have to be violent in
I feel like it's created, though. It's created. It's kind of like that idea of hurt people. Right. So I think it's created in us. And if it's not tended to, then it just builds. And I feel like that's what's been more of an issue, is there's been this ongoing kind of trauma in certain families and communities that are just stuck in that cycle. And there's not an environment and a society and a community that really can help folks heal and come out of that,
So I think that's what the church's job is.
Right. But I think that's like the thing is, so how do you do that? You have to invest in those communities. You have to really put the money, the focus, and that's a lot of what the conversation is when people say that we need to abolish the police. What they're saying is we need to focus on addressing the symptoms, the things that lead to the things in this way, versus like just cleaning up the mess, if you will.
I agree. I think there's a need for both, though. I think there needs to be it is a process.
Like, it's like, because we can't just go from like boom to boom tomorrow. But because it's not like everything's just going to switch like that. So sorry.
Right. No, it's all good.
David has another comment. He says, it sounds like we are all on the same page about gun safety and users, but should we restrict the type of gun, like automatic weapons, so those with mental health issues cannot fire hundreds of rounds in seconds?
I have to say, I personally don't see a need for all that stuff, but I do know there's, and I want to go back to sporting things that people do with those types of guns. I've seen rifle competitions and different types of things like that I think people engage in that as an activity. I don't know how to restrict all that. So, and again, I'm not big on restriction unless there's a really good reason. Now, I'm hoping that they'll continue with background checks and some of these other things that they're doing. I'm all about higher regulation on certain types of weapons. I think that's necessary. Someone like me, I certainly don't need some machine gun that shoots however many bullets.
Well, and I think guns are created to kill people.
Yeah.
That's the purpose.
Yeah, that's not even good for. So yeah, but yeah, so I don't know. I look at these regulations very seriously, and those things when they come to a vote. I'm one of the people that is nerdy enough that I read all of that stuff. I ask questions. I try to understand, and I do make my voice known to my representatives because that's very important to me. I don't want crazy weapons in unqualified hands. And so for me, it's each different. I don't see a reason for a machine gun or some of those automatic weapons at all. But to take a hard stand, I'd have to have some more information and understand all the working parts.
Yeah. And I think ultimately a lot of us are I want people to be able to, make choices in their own life and determine what's good for them and what's not. Obviously there are maybe short-sightedness we can have, that we could be causing harm, that, you know what I mean? Like that, like, so I agree with the idea. Yeah. I struggle with just saying no to that, because I think it's very real too. Like, we still live in a world in which there's guns. Our government has guns. Our police have guns. Our enemies of war have guns. So I think completely, like, it's not for me. But I guess I could understand why maybe people have them. I just personally don't see the use. I just don't see any purpose in them. But we also still live in a world that's still hurting. So and
I think keeping those personal freedoms available is important.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what it goes back to, is my personal freedoms of living the life that I, if I'm in a free country, I want to experience those freedoms. And as long as my freedoms aren't stealing from somebody else,
right,
or hurting somebody else.
Yeah.
So good questions, David. Thank you so much for engaging. Hopefully we answered your questions and didn't go off on a side note like, we do sometimes.
I don't think I've ever really talked about guns. So you know what I mean? I don't feel like I'm super versed in talking about it,
Yeah, it's not a conversation I engage in much either. I do think about that, though, is when things come up and when we've got elections coming on and all that stuff. That is it's not my most important issue that I would chase after, but it's definitely down the line, something that I consider when I'm casting a vote.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes me conservative.
I'm like wondering if there's, like, I don't know. I just don't think about it as much. And maybe that's my own, like, I don't know, naivete or whatever, but I just don't, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
David says, you did very insightful on a difficult topic. Thank you.
Oh, thanks
for
David.
chiming in, David.
Yeah.
And David is our mutual friend's brother, Marcus's friend, David. Yeah, that's
hey, nice to meet you. We love Marcus.
Yes.
Awesome,
so now where we go.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So did you get to attend church even online on Sunday?
I do church yesterday. Like I said, it feels like so long.
I said, do you even know what day of the week it is?
No, I did go to a little bit of a service in the morning. The service in Milwaukee that I like to go to. But I do my lives now on Sunday mornings too. And I just didn't get a chance to do it yesterday with doing the movie and all, or doing the video and all that. So I'll be able to probably get a chance to watch something, after.
Do you not love and hate all that?
Love and hate all what?
All the online possibilities. I mean, I so love the ability that if I need to, I can log on and not miss church.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me sad that I can't get to not get to. I don't want to become that person that I don't desire to get together with the church or any group like that. That I'd prefer to have an online interaction, because online interactions are great for supplemental, but for regular activity, I don't think it's I just don't think it's good for us, because we're relational people. But so I think that's a good thing that's come out of COVID, as far as people having to be creative and being able to reach out digitally. Even myself, I've expanded my borders in all of that. So I'm grateful, like you, I can go to church on Monday if something's not happening on Sunday or Wednesday or whatever the day is. But yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait till the day you can walk into a church and actually embrace somebody and engage with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I mean, and the accessibility it's different, right? Like, so for some of us, we have more accessibility in a time that we're not supposed to be with one another, because we have internet, because we have a home, because we have these sorts of things. And there are plenty of other people that are kind of now without, because they maybe didn't have those sorts of ways of connecting anyway. And then now they don't have like the buildings or the groups of people to kind of connect with too. So I think it, for some folks, it just maybe made things even more inaccessible.
Well, see, I hadn't thought about that. So just kind of kind of depends. But things sure have changed in the last year.
Yeah, I think it's just going to create a world in which, well, and there was a virtual world. I mean, there's a virtual world that a lot of people lived in. I just don't think it had become as mainstream as it is. And I hope that as things open up, they kind of are able to have that virtual option for folks who do need it, because some of the things that is nice is I think folks who are from smaller towns or rural areas or haven't been out of wherever they are, they can have an opportunity to kind of venture into other communities and other space and kind of be introduced to just difference that can be really helpful. So I think that's been really good. I've enjoyed that aspect a lot myself too.
Yeah, me too. You know what? Another thing I've enjoyed is curbside pickup at restaurants.
Yeah,
I know that sounds bad, but I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I mean, we're in a little small town here where I'm at, and we don't have all the chain restaurants, so all of ours are mom and pop. So when they did all those shutting down and only X amount, so we all made a commitment to purchase a meal from a restaurant, once a week or once every couple of weeks, so that they can kind of keep their doors open. And I have to say, there are some places that I frequented inside the restaurant that I might just continue to pick up my food because the food was good. I love eating it in my house. And who'd have thought? I still didn't have to cook, so that's nice. The cleanup's still easy. I can toss it in the trash. But so I really I feel like that whole evolved. I mean, I've got so many options now that I never had before. Before, if I wanted to have takeout or whatever, I had to have a pizza, pretty much. But now I can just have whatever I want, which is nice.
Yeah, that is make it nice.
So,
I'm eager to have the opportunity to be I'm a more tangible person. I don't know. I guess I want to say three-dimensional things. I guess, I don't know. It's so weird because I always said I was feeling like I've lost my ability to be affectionate as I've gotten older for whatever reason. Like I'm not a touchy, feely person like I used to be or whatever. And when that was actually removed from our life for a while, I actually really then I saw actually how much affection I did have in my life, because I hadn't. I just remember feeling more like I was at a deficit of affection in my life and kind of desiring more of it. And then once it kind of was removed from me, then I was like, well, hey, I do have some affection. And I'm grateful for the affection that I've had. And then, so I'm hoping that that's something that I'll continue to kind of not take for granted in the future as well.
So that's interesting. The things that change can help us to realize about ourselves, to me, is continually amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without change, I think we just kind of exist in a space. So we may be a comfortable space, but if we're not constantly changing and challenging our perspective, who we are, what's important to us, I mean, we will never see areas in our life that might not be where it should be, and even as little as what we're talking about.
Right. It's in some ways too, it's like, why did it take this to happen for things to change in the way that they're beginning to change? It's like, but I know that's like, I have to be in a lot of freaking pain, and there has to be no other option.
Alternative, you're right.
For me to actually change if I'm not knocked down.
Yeah, I think you're like a lot of other people too. I think you're right. So this really gave us no other options. And so it's like, we got to adjust, that I was hearing, I don't know if you've been listening to the news or if this is affecting you guys. Our elementary schools, or actually all our schools, are being really affected here because all this change. And I believe change is always good, even if it's uncomfortable or whatever. I think it's always good because something has to rise up from it, right? So all these kids went to online and back in thing, and then back online, and then back. So they've been back and forth. Well, now a lot of these students are choosing not to go back to the classroom. They're making that decision for themselves. And I don't know if they're doing homeschooling, if they're doing online schooling through some of these bigger online high schools that have been around for a while or whatever. But I know one of our school districts here laid off 1,500 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because the kids aren't coming back, or?
Yeah, because there's not enough enrollment.
Mm.
So I'm thinking, at first I'm like, oh, this is awful. And I'm praying that these folks that have been laid off will find another solution. I mean, it's a change for them. So it's a rolling change. So it got affected by the COVID. They went up and down, up and down, up and down, trying to find a solution. Well, now there's another devastating change in this sector. And so now this change the parents made for themselves, for their family, is affecting these other families now without income. So it'll be interesting to see how that changed. So when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I feel like our educational system, at least at a K through 12, may be in the process of a change. Yeah. I don't know what that's going to look like. Have you heard anything like that over in San Francisco?
No. I haven't heard much of that. I know like some of the teachers are going back to school this week to get ready for the kids to come. Okay. But I, at least like my, one of my mentors is a school teacher. And so that's her story. She's like getting to go back into the classroom this week. And then
is this their first time back in the classroom?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's been virtual the whole time.
Wow.
It's like, I guess probably about a year now or so. Yeah, but the education system, could probably use an overhaul as well.
For sure.
There's been like a lack of investment, I think. And then, the education system in a lot of ways, the way that it was created was to, to create people to get into jobs, like it was very much about how do we get people to work in these, like, get these jobs to do the work we want them to do so we can make lots of money. That was part of, I think, the intention. And then also as kind of like babysitting, like a way of taking care of the kids so that, folks can go to work.
Parents can go to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. There has needed to be a change for a long time.
But they
it's going to be interesting to see.
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I think we could be more efficient with our time. Like I don't understand why we have to work 40 hours a week. I know in most of the jobs that I did, the bulk of the actual work that I did was probably done in like 20 hours of that week, or the rest was all that in between crap that's just taking up space. It's like I think we could be more efficient. We could have more people with jobs. We could be more efficient, and we would be happier because we would have time to be doing the other things outside of work, because our life is so centered around work. And I think school can be the same way for kids, until they get into their adulthood. And I know like in Wendell, they started cutting down. They went from a 5-day school to 4-day, I think a couple years ago, basically to save money.
Yeah.
At least that was my understanding.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of things that have been misdirected and misguided over the years that may be getting a second look. And again, I think change is always good, and we get in our sweet spot there. And we just want to stay there forever. But if we stay there forever, we're missing out what that next growth is. I would love to see everybody working in an area that they're passionate about. It breaks my heart to hear people saying, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years, this job for 20 years. They hate it, but they're going to keep doing it because they need to make money. My personal belief is that if we can find that thing that we're passionate about, even though that passionate thing may change as we go through different seasons in life, I think we can not only be creative, but we can find our income stream, and we can find that space where we can be the best of who we were created to be. And so
I think there's a lot of things that we have to do to change that, though, so that everyone could work in their passion. I mean, there's a lot of folks that are just stuck working where they're working because they really don't have any choice. They didn't have access to the education. They didn't have access to maybe move somewhere else. They have whatever sort of histories or discriminations or biases or whatever that's, they're going up against that keeps them in certain ways of being. And I think until we can really address those things, people are going to kind of be stuck until you'll get those folks that, somehow bust through it. But a lot of folks kind of get stuck where they're at. I think there's a lot of that feeling that I am stuck where I'm at and there's nothing I can do to get out of this situation. And I think that could be true for a lot of folks.
People. Well, how do you think that needs to be addressed?
Well, it's a huge thing, but I don't think that, and this might sound like, and I don't understand, like, I'm not like a big politician speaking person, but I don't think that my understanding of capitalism, I don't think is really helpful. Like, I don't think there are people who have more money than they need, like anybody needs. And then there are more and more people starving and going without. And you know what I mean? Like the poverty level, like it's just getting more and more. And it's like, I think that there's a way that I don't think somebody who gets paid, works at the restaurant, if you will. I don't know. I just feel like the amount that we pay people, how money is distributed, it's not done equally. It's not done fairly. If we all have value and worth, why do we have to have all these? I don't know. I just feel like we give certain money to certain people in some situations and others we don't. And they're still doing 40 hours of work that is meaningful and matters to the community in one way or the other, whether they're driving a bus or they're working in the parks or they're a doctor at a hospital or they're a preacher or they're you know what I mean? I just feel like there's a lot of greedy people.
So you think that should change via government, or what do you think drives that change?
Well, just because the government is so much in
I'm not trying to laugh. I'm just thinking, I'm not sure there's a right answer to that.
I know. I'm just like,
I'm like, I didn't just say that just to tie you up. I was saying this is really not an answer to this.
Yeah, well, because the reality is if, like, I guess it has to be with the government, but it also has to kind of be with the people too, that has to change, because it has to be, I don't know, because it just has to be both. Because it
has to be both. You're right.
The government
we all have to participate.
The government still kind of has too much control.
Are you conservative?
No, I don't think that's a conservative. I think that's where conservatives and progressives don't communicate well. I don't think that most progressives are like, therefore people having better experience and more options and more agency to be able to make your own decisions about your own life. And as long as it's not harming others, I think that we all want that. I think we all just have different ways of how that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I mean, if you listen to it, I don't think most even like they're like more government. I think folks are just trying to work within a system of power to change it to be useful instead of harmful. And we all have different ways of approaching that.
Yeah.
But what is happening is not good.
You're right. And well, I'm sure we both have some ideas about all that. I don't want to get us off on a sidetrack. Everybody going, I'm not listening to these folks.
I know, right? We need to no longer have two parties. We need to have term limits on everybody.
Yes, I agree with both of those things.
I think being an elected official should become more of a civil, like a duty, like you go to jury. I think that there should be so much options to be in government that it's almost something that everybody does at some point in time in their life. And I think that's important to allow our country to continue to address the world in the now, not in the past, like with what's the reality, what's relevant, what's important now. And I think if we had term limits, if people weren't like career politicians, if we have a constitution and we have a system that we think works well, then it should be able to run itself and you just insert new people, right? And if we could just insert more new people, I think we could start getting better results.
I agree, because I think when people come in there, there's a passion level. So I can't even tell you how many times I've been disappointed by a candidate who is on fire. They've got all these ideas. They've got fresh ideas. They got fresh understanding. They bring a whole level of different types of skill sets. I'm so tired of the same skill sets sitting in those same chairs with a different name. And they get up there, they get in there, and then all of a sudden things shift. And people say, well, it's because they didn't know how this really works. What do you mean? We don't want it working the same way it's been working. That's why we put that person in that spot. So I try not to get disappointed with the individual, because I have no idea what kind of pressure they have once they get in there, and if how those ideas are received or what kind of stuff goes on. I have no idea. But I agree with you that if we were to have fresh individuals in there with term limits, I don't want any more. I don't want career politicians either.
I think
that's where new passion comes.
I think we have to remove the money. That's where the money needs to go away too.
I don't think that's money issue. I think, well, I think that if we can get those limits and those things, and I think, well, I'm with you. I don't think I'm
the only way you can get into office is money. You have to have a lot of money in order to even get into office.
You're right, and I think that's right. I think anyone who wants to run should be able to run,
and they should have
they should have equal press time as everybody else. I don't think anyone should be able to buy an ad. I think they need to earn those ads.
The government should pay for the campaigning.
No,
but it needs to be more balanced, where everyone has an equal opportunity to really show up.
I agree. And I think the media's responsibility is to interview all those candidates unbiased and have a real idea of who people are. I want to see their real track record. What have they really done? So I think we're on the same page there. We're going to go off too far. Right.
No,
sorry.
No, we are. We're fine. We can get it all out.
Okay.
Right now. I think the other thing I think we need to do, I think everybody needs to have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Period.
Well,
if they live within the region, I think they should get to it. And I think prisoners, people in jail, should also be voting.
I think anyone who's an American citizen should be able to vote. So wherever they're at, I think they should be able to vote.
Yeah, I think if you're living in the area, I think you should be able to vote.
Okay, well, we just have a gray area there. So
just because because like a lot of things, you don't have equal access to. We don't all have access to that same sort of liberty, or that same sort of credentialing, if you will. So I think we have to really decide I guess, if you're a resident of the United States, but maybe the definition of who a resident is could change.
Yeah. So I think there definitely needs to be a lot of work done in all this.
David. Peter says, amazing topics today. That was earlier that Peter posted that. He might not feel that way now, but he did earlier. And David says, including prisoners. Yes, I do. I know that's crazy, but I do think that everyone should have access, even prisoners, partially because I think that our prison system is I want to use that F word. It's not great. I think we have way too many people in prisons for a lot of the wrong reasons, and we're not actually really correcting anything, and we're not creating systems and structure. We're basically I think we do this with a lot of things, is we have a problem with something and we throw it away. And I feel like we've done that with people. And I feel like prisons are full of that. And it's easy for government or whoever just to throw these people over here and not think about it. But do you know how we spend so much money on that? We invest so much in that. And I think that it could be better. And if we have so many people in prison that their vote is pushing some sort of is swinging the votes, then I think that there's something in that for us to learn from as a country. You know what I mean? If that were ever the case, that we had so many prisoners that they were declaring who was president of the United States or who was governor of some place, then I think that would probably be something we really need to look at, I think, as a society. But I don't know.
Well, hey, that's your perspective. So you're entitled to have that. That's why we live in the country that we live in. Because we have that. We can have whatever perspective we want.
Yeah.
And we can work towards change toward that perspective. We just got to do it with dignity and with love and honesty. You know, I just had my family over for Easter. So blessed. But when we sit in this room and we all had a great time playing and doing whatever, but we don't all agree with how things are religiously, politically, whatever. We all aren't the same. So you're not seeing all of my family when you see me.
Right.
So for us to be able to get together and enjoy one another and still have our differences and things. I mean, we can stand on different sides of a political agenda, vote completely differently, and we can still come together as a family and love each other, respect one another, support one another. And I think those are things that we need to work on as communities, not just families, but as families, a good start, because I think the family is broken in a lot of areas for that. We've gone through our own brokenness and restoration and all that stuff. And you and I have gone through all that also. But I think if we can work towards that as a nation and starting with our communities, and I think if we can both be active in my community, my family, your family, our family as a whole, that's when I think we start to see change. And if everyone could focus in on the area that they have around them and start there, I think there's a rapid effect that can change. And there's going to be lots of different little things that come out of that. You know, prisons open, prisons close, police go and police not close. You know what I'm saying? Education, no education, schools, no schools. I think all that stuff that we've been arguing about, I think we'll start to self-correct if we can just move in that direction. But I have to be honest. I don't want someone trying to be the boss of me. I don't want someone trying to change my ideas and my opinions to be like theirs and to tell me that if they're not, that I'm wrong or I'm a moron or I'm an idiot. There just needs to be space for all of us to live and to love one another, to be honest, even if we don't like the honesty that the other person is sharing. And so that's the desire of my heart. That's the space that I aspire to live personally. And I'm hoping we'll find more of as I continue to grow as an individual, and that those people will also grow around me so that we can continue to create a larger space for people to just be who they are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the, that's, I think us moving beyond the duality of, the reality is there's not just two sides of everything. That's all we hear about.
You're right.
Could live in that in between in the shades of bright, if we could live in that instead of this other thing, because that's what we're being told. This is the thing, or this is the thing. And it's a minority of people that maybe even think that thing is worth a shit. And the rest of us are all in the middle. I know we're running out of time, and I don't edit yet. I don't have the staff or the time to do editing for these right now. So we'll probably want to try to be done. Okay. Did you want to share your mask?
Oh, I'm sorry. I so forgot. So one of the great things that happened to me this weekend was I got my Splintered Grace mask in the mail. So fun. We saw an opportunity to get some of these made. And so if anyone is in the market for a new mask, we ask you consider. Oops, I got mine all wonky here.
That's all right.
It's very comfortable. It's a soft fabric, and you can let everyone know that you're a fan.
Right. Yes. So we have the masks, we have coffee cups, and we have water bottles. So I have the link in the bottom scrolling right now that you can check it out at queerchaplain.creator.spring.com, which is a mess. But it's there. Write it down, and I'll also put it in the description so you can just click on it. That'll be a lot easier. Then it'll help support the costs of just hosting this podcast every week, and the work of a queer chaplain. So
awesome. And go ahead and plug Bob.
Oh,
also.
Yeah, well, and so Bob Kaiser has a series on forgiveness with WGHC out of northern Chicago, and so we'll put a link also in the bottom to his show. He has 3. I think we're in his 3rd episode of the series. So you can check that out, as well as it's a really great series, and he's had some really great folks on there.
Yeah, some great conversations.
Talking. Also on Wednesday, I'm interviewing Flamey Grant, which I'm excited about that. So anyhow, hi, Reverse Art. Glad you could pop in and say hello. We are on our way out. So we are going to say goodbye. Do you want to say goodbye, Tina?
Yep. Everyone have a fabulous week. Thanks for joining us today. I look forward to next week's conversation.
Ta-ta for now. Mwah.
Splintered Grace Podcast is brought to you by a queer chaplain. Follow us on all of our social medias, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at a queer chaplain. Listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Feel free to tip us at Venmo, Bonnie Violet, and support monthly on Patreon. The song is original by Steven Sandnoff, The Chasm Between Us. Rest in peace, Steven. Hey, how's it going? Bonnie Violet here. I'm a trans femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, and digital chaplain. And in case you didn't know, I could really use your support. Engage, rate, subscribe, follow, comment, share this episode, book me to keynote, panel, guest on your show, or officiate your wedding or memorial, in or out of drag, collaborate, join the team, be a guest, make a pitch, sponsor an episode, join my Patreon, send me a tip on Venmo or PayPal. Just do something. Thank you so much for your continued support. Check out the links in the description.